Sir, this is an American citizen. On what basis are you detaining her? Sir, this is federal business. Step back or you'll be arrested for obstruction. Then arrest me, but you're not taking her without probable cause. Conducting immigration enforcement. Final warning. Move aside. She invoked her right to remain silent and requested an attorney. You have no warrant. What's your legal justification?
They thought it would be a normal morning. Jazara stepped out of her apartment building, coffee in hand, backpack slung over one shoulder. The sun had just started climbing, casting sharp light across the street, and the air smelled faintly of exhaust and breakfast from the corner diner. She had a short list of errands: post office, pharmacy, and a quick stop at the grocery store. Nothing complicated, nothing extraordinary. Just a routine she had perfected over months, moving efficiently from one task to the next. She crossed the street at the light, nodding to the neighbor walking his dog, feeling the familiar rhythm of a day already in motion. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a text from a friend confirming lunch later. She smiled and typed back quickly. The sound of tires on asphalt drew her attention, the low hum growing louder until she realized two black SUVs were pulling onto the curb.
Before we go further, what city or country are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. We love seeing where you're tuning in from. If you believe assumption based on skin color can destroy innocent lives and must be exposed, then make sure you like this video and subscribe.
Across the street. They stopped, engines idling, and a moment later, uniformed figures stepped out. The sudden shift in energy was immediate and unmistakable. Jazara froze. The men were serious, controlled, moving with the kind of precision that only comes from training. Her mind ran through every possibility, every mistake she might have made that could draw this attention. None of it made sense. She was calm, but her heart kicked a little faster. One of the agents stepped forward, voice firm. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us." "I'm sorry," Jazara asked, lifting her coffee slightly as if that small gesture could make the world normal again. "I'm an American citizen. Can you show me what is this about?" The agent didn't answer. Another SUV door opened, and more agents spilled onto the sidewalk. They were all looking at her, professional, their presence heavy. Jazara's mind raced, but she didn't panic. She kept her posture straight, hands visible. She had dealt with difficult people before, and she knew that losing control now would only make things worse. A small crowd started to gather, drawn by the tension. Phones came out. Someone whispered, "Is she in trouble?" Another voice muttered something about ICE. Jazara felt a surge of anxiety, not for herself exactly, but for what could happen if this escalated. She took a deep breath. "I have identification. I can prove who I am," she said, pulling her wallet from her bag and holding up her ID clearly. "I've done nothing wrong. Please, show me the warrant or explain what's happening." One agent glanced at the others, a flicker of irritation crossing his face. "You need to come with us," he repeated. "Now." Jazara held her ground. The morning felt suddenly smaller, contained in this single stretch of sidewalk. The routine dissolved into a standoff. The smell of coffee was gone, replaced by the metallic tang of adrenaline and asphalt. From the corner of her eye, she noticed a man approaching. He walked with purpose, but there was a calm in his steps, a control that immediately cut through the tension radiating from the agents. He wasn't loud. He didn't shout. He just moved toward them, hands unclenched, shoulders squared. As he came closer, Jazara recognized the symbol on his jacket, the Black Panther insignia. Her pulse steadied slightly. She knew him from community meetings, neighborhood watch initiatives, moments where he had shown himself steady, strategic, and level-headed in the face of trouble. He stopped a few feet from the agents, voice low but firm. "I'm Malik Vance. You're going to need a warrant for that." The words landed, precise, unflinching. The agents paused. The air shifted. The crowd murmured, recording, watching. For a moment, the sidewalk felt bigger, the stakes suddenly clearer. Jazara stayed still, watching the exchange unfold, feeling a cautious relief that someone who understood the law and the weight of authority had arrived. Everything had changed in the span of seconds. What had started as an ordinary morning was now a test of authority, of knowledge, and of composure. Jazara braced herself for what would come next, aware that this was only the beginning. The street was quiet at first, just the usual hum of traffic and distant chatter from pedestrians. Then the black SUVs rolled up, tires crunching against the curb. The first one stopped at a sharp angle, blocking part of the sidewalk. The second pulled just behind it, engines idling, the scent of hot asphalt and exhaust filling the air. The agents didn't hurry. They moved with precision, sliding out of the vehicles like clockwork, their boots hitting the concrete in unison. Every step was measured, authoritative. Jazara's heart picked up pace, but she kept her breathing steady. She was trained to stay calm in stressful situations, and this qualified. Her ID was still in hand, ready to show, ready to assert her rights. The street seemed smaller suddenly, the ordinary morning replaced by a confrontation that she hadn't asked for and didn't understand. The first agent approached directly, voice low but firm. "Ma'am, step over here. We need to speak with you." Excuse me? Why?" Jazara asked. She kept her hands visible, resting at her sides. "I've done nothing wrong. I have identification. I'm an American citizen." The agent didn't reply. He glanced toward his team, signaling something with a subtle tilt of his head. Two more agents moved around to block any potential escape, their positions precise. Another SUV door opened and two more men emerged, scanning the crowd and the perimeter. Every movement was controlled, practiced. Jazara felt a knot in her stomach. She wasn't afraid for herself, she was careful, aware, but she understood how quickly things could escalate. The street was public, yes, but it was narrow, and these agents outnumbered her by several bodies, all trained, all armed. The presence of the crowd had already begun to change the dynamic, but she knew cameras didn't guarantee safety. They could show what happened, but they couldn't prevent it. One of the agents stepped closer, tilting his badge slightly for identification. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us. You match a description. Compliance is required." Jazara's jaw tightened. "I already told you I have ID. I am a citizen. I have nothing to hide. Please, show me your warrant." The agent's gaze didn't waver. "You will come with us. Now." A few bystanders had stopped. Phones were out, quietly recording. Jazara felt their eyes on her, the weight of observation adding pressure. She could see the uncertainty creeping into some of the agents' postures, just slightly, but the overall force remained unyielding. From across the street, Malik Vance arrived. He walked with a calm authority that immediately contrasted with the rigid tension of the agents. There was no rush, no panic, only controlled movement. He didn't yell, didn't approach aggressively. He stopped a few feet from Jazara and the agents, hands relaxed at his sides, and spoke evenly. "I'm Malik Vance. You're going to need a warrant for that," he said, eyes locked on the lead agent. The agents paused, momentarily taken aback. His presence disrupted their rhythm. They hadn't expected someone to step in with clarity, with authority, with knowledge of the legal limits they were supposed to operate within. The crowd shifted slightly, sensing the change. Phones raised higher, whispers passing through the small group forming along the sidewalk. Jazara's shoulders relaxed just a fraction. She didn't move, didn't speak. She watched Malik handle the situation, the calm in his posture, the precision in his words. He didn't confront them with aggression, he confronted them with law. The lead agent, Marcus Trenholm, tilted his head, scanning Malik from head to toe. "This is a routine stop. Compliance is required," he said, voice clipped but carrying a note of uncertainty now. Malik didn't flinch. "Routine or not, you're obligated to follow procedure. Show me the detainer or the warrant. Otherwise, you are violating her rights. And everyone here is recording. Every step." Trenholm's jaw tightened. He motioned slightly with his hand, and two agents stepped forward. Their body language was defensive now, less confident, aware that the eyes on them were no longer just those of bystanders. They were Malik's and the cameras. Jazara's gaze shifted from Malik to Trenholm and back. The ordinary morning she had stepped into was gone. What had been an errand, a cup of coffee, a brief stop at the corner store, had transformed into a tense negotiation of rights, authority, and public presence. Every word, every step mattered. Every action would be scrutinized. Malik's calm persisted. He didn't shout, he didn't threaten. He documented. He asked questions. He reminded them of legal obligations. He held the space for Jazara to assert her position. The agents, armed and trained, were suddenly on uncertain ground, their command authority checked in front of witnesses, recorded on phones, and questioned legally in real time. The crowd's murmur grew, the tension palpable, but Jazara stayed composed. She had already proven her identity once. Now, with Malik standing in front, she felt the strange reassurance of someone who knew the law and could speak it clearly against those who were supposed to uphold it. Trenholm's voice, sharp but less certain, broke the silence again. "Step aside, ma'am. You're creating unnecessary attention." "I'm not creating attention," Jazara replied firmly, her voice steady. "I'm asking that you follow the law. That's your responsibility." Malik nodded slightly toward her, then back to the agents. You're responsible for this encounter. You can either handle it lawfully, or you'll have to answer for it later. The choice is yours. Now, where is your warrant? There was a pause. The agents exchanged glances, small shifts in stance, subtle signs of unease. They hadn't anticipated scrutiny this early. Their confidence was still there, but it was tested, pressed into a public space with witnesses watching. Every movement counted. Every step could escalate or de-escalate the situation. The crowd was silent now, phones recording, eyes fixed. Jazara felt the tension in her shoulders ease slightly, though adrenaline still ran under her skin. This was no longer a routine morning. It had become a test of authority, of knowledge, and of calm under pressure. Malik's presence had changed everything. The agents had arrived expecting compliance, expecting little resistance. Instead, they were faced with a calm, articulate challenger who understood the law, the stakes, and the power of public scrutiny. Jazara's ordinary morning had been disrupted, yes, but in that disruption lay a chance for accountability, a chance for her rights to be respected. The SUVs idled silently, engines humming under the tension. Trenholm's hands flexed slightly, the motion controlled but noticeable. Malik remained composed, steady, eyes unwavering. Jazara stayed behind him, quiet but ready. The street had transformed into a stage where procedure, courage, and public observation collided. The first crack in the agent's certainty had appeared. Malik's intervention had shifted the dynamic, making every subsequent move weigh heavier than before. Jazara, once just a woman running errands, now stood at the center of a confrontation that could determine the course of her morning and possibly ignite a wider conversation about rights, authority, and accountability. Nothing had been resolved yet. The agents still wanted compliance. Jazara's citizenship was still being challenged. But Malik had created space for negotiation, for procedure, for law to reassert itself. In those critical seconds, the ordinary morning had transformed into a test of awareness, courage, and the quiet, firm assertion of justice. Every movement mattered. Every word counted. The approaching escalation was imminent, but for the moment, calm and authority were holding the line, and the ordinary had been replaced by extraordinary vigilance in plain daylight. The first words from the lead agent cut through the morning like a knife. "Ma'am, you match the description of someone we're looking for. You need to come with us." Jazara's heart didn't pound, but it tightened. She kept her hands in view, holding her ID in one, coffee still in the other. "I already told you, I'm an American citizen. You can verify my identification. I've done nothing wrong. I don't know why you're stopping me." The agent didn't flinch. His tone was controlled, professional, but there was a weight behind it, authority leaning on assumption rather than fact. "We have reason to believe you're the person. Compliance is required." Jazara's jaw set. She didn't argue for the sake of arguing. She spoke with clarity. "I am not that person. I have my ID right here. Check it. You can run it if you need to. I am fully within my rights." Another agent stepped closer, blocking any path around them. The group moved like a wall, a coordinated formation designed to limit movement. Jazara could feel the eyes of bystanders, subtle shifts as people started filming, whispering. The tension on the street was sharp. The ordinary morning had vanished. Malik shifted slightly, positioning himself between Jazara and the agents. His presence didn't shout, it steadied. "Let's take a step back. You need proper documentation to detain her. Do you have that?" Trenholm, the lead agent, hesitated for a fraction of a second, long enough for the moment to register with the growing crowd. "She matches the description," he repeated, a little more forceful. "We need to take her in." "Matching a description isn't enough," Malik said evenly. "You need a warrant. You need probable cause. You need to follow procedure. Otherwise, this is an unlawful detention." Jazara watched the interaction quietly, noting the subtle shifts in body language. The agents were trained, but the crowd watching, the cameras rolling, and Malik's steady insistence created a pressure they weren't accustomed to. Trenholm gestured for her to step toward the SUV. "Step over here. You'll be fine once we sort this out." "I'm not stepping anywhere without proof," Jazara said firmly. "I have nothing to hide, but you need to follow the law. Show me the paperwork. Show me the reason. This is public and people are watching." Malik's voice cut through again. "We're not escalating this. Let's clarify the facts. Her identification is valid. If your documentation is in order, proceed. If not, you need to step back." The agents exchanged glances. The smallest cracks of uncertainty appeared. They had expected compliance, not a legal and public challenge. The crowd sensed it. Phones were raised, whispers grew louder. "She's not doing anything wrong," one voice murmured. "They can't just take her." Trenholm's expression hardened. "This is routine. You're making a scene." Jazara stayed calm. "You're the one ignoring the law. I am not the problem here. If you proceed without cause, this becomes your responsibility. I've already identified myself. You have no warrant. You have no probable cause." The tension stretched. Time slowed. Every movement mattered. An agent shifted his stance, fingers brushing the grip of his belt. Another agent checked the SUV doors, as if readying for escalation. The crowd stepped closer, some cautiously, some more overtly, their attention fixed on the confrontation. Malik's eyes didn't leave Trenholm's. "This is your choice. Handle it legally, or the consequences are yours. Everyone here is watching, and it's all being recorded." "She is not resisting. You are overstepping." Jazara's voice was calm but firm. "I have nothing else to say. Please follow the law. That's all I ask." Trenholm's jaw tightened. The agent's movements became more measured, hesitant. They had intended to assert authority through presence, but the combination of Malik's intervention, Jazara's composure, and the public attention was shifting the balance. A small crowd had now gathered along the sidewalk, phones recording. Whispers turned to murmurs. "Why are they stopping her? She has ID. They need a warrant." Jazara felt a mix of anxiety and reassurance. The ordinary morning had turned into a test of law, authority, and public scrutiny. She wasn't alone anymore. Malik raised a hand slightly, a gesture that cut through the murmurs. "Let's resolve this without conflict. Show us the paperwork. Confirm her identity legally. That's all anyone here wants." Trenholm's gaze flicked toward Malik, tension in his shoulders. The lead agent had trained for confrontation, for resistance, but not for this. A composed, legally informed observer standing firm in public, demanding accountability. Jazara's calm didn't waver. She knew her rights, she knew the law, and she could feel the shift in energy. The street that had seemed narrow and confining now felt like a stage for accountability. She stayed steady, letting Malik handle the legal challenge while she simply held her ground, ID in hand, ready for any misstep to be recorded. Every second stretched, every word mattered. The agent's confidence was being tested, their authority questioned publicly. Malik's presence had transformed the encounter from a routine stop into a confrontation where procedure and rights were the center of attention. Trenholm's tone changed slightly. We just need to verify." "Exactly," Malik said, voice firm. "Verify legally. Follow procedure. Anything else is overreach." The crowd leaned in, silent now, eyes fixed on the agents, phones pointed. Jazara's heartbeat slowed in recognition of the power of presence, of calm assertion. This wasn't chaos, it was control. And control was on her side. Time seemed suspended, the ordinary morning a distant memory. The agents were still present, their authority intact but challenged. The question now was whether they would continue the confrontation recklessly or step back under scrutiny. Jazara's eyes met Malik's briefly. No words needed. He understood the stakes. Calm, legal pressure. Observation. Documentation. That was the weapon here, not force. Trenholm hesitated, shifting slightly, the first real sign of uncertainty. "Run your identification," he muttered, almost under his breath. Malik didn't let up. "Do it properly. Verify your citizenship. Follow procedure. Make it official. Otherwise, you step over the line, and that's on you." Jazara's hands were steady now. Her ID ready, her voice calm, her presence firm. The ordinary morning she had walked into had vanished entirely, replaced by a test of authority, rights, and public accountability that would define the rest of her day. The first phone came up slowly, the screen aimed at the unfolding scene, as if the person wasn't entirely sure what they were seeing. Then another and another. Jazara noticed the shift in the street. The ordinary flow of morning walkers, coffee runners, and dog owners had stalled. People paused mid-step, eyes narrowing, heads tilting to take in what was happening. The ICE agents were still firm, rigid, authoritative, but now they were being watched. And that watching mattered. Whispers spread through the crowd like electricity. "Why are they stopping her?" one voice asked. "She's showing ID," someone else replied. Others murmured questions no one could answer, and phones quietly recorded everything. Every command, every hesitation, every word from Jazara and Malik was now being preserved. Jazara felt the shift immediately. The weight on her shoulders lessened slightly. She wasn't alone. People were witnessing, silently judging, and in some cases, ready to step in if things escalated. She still stayed calm, holding her ID in her hand, standing tall despite the agent's presence and the subtle pressure of a growing crowd. Malik didn't move closer. He didn't need to. His presence alone made the agents reconsider their posture, their authority measured against scrutiny. "Everyone's watching," he said quietly, loud enough for Trenholm to hear. "Handle this correctly." The agents shifted, repositioning slightly. Trenholm glanced at the people with phones raised, calculating. The murmurs grew. Some people edged closer, drawn to the tension, their curiosity outweighed by a sense of justice. Others simply stood still, recording silently, letting the situation speak for itself. Jazara felt eyes on her from every direction. She could see some faces in the crowd, curiosity, concern, quiet fear, even anger. A woman near the corner muttered to her companion, "That could be me. That could be anyone." Jazara knew she was right. The crowd wasn't just observing, they were feeling the stakes personally. Malik's voice remained calm. "Step back if you need space," he said to the bystanders. "But stay aware. This is happening in real time." Some obeyed immediately, creating a loose semicircle around the confrontation. Others edged closer, balancing between observation and interference. The crowd's size wasn't massive, but the concentration of witnesses made a difference. Phones recorded not just the agents but the dynamic, the calm assertion of rights, the legal knowledge applied under pressure, and the subtle cracks in the agent's authority. Trenholm cleared his throat, addressing Jazara, though his words now carried a hint of hesitation. "Ma'am, please step toward the vehicle. We just need to verify everything." "I am verifying," Jazara said, holding her ID forward, eyes steady. "Everything is correct. You are the ones who need to verify. You have no warrant. You have no probable cause. I've done nothing wrong. This is public. People are watching." Malik stepped slightly to the side, gesturing to the crowd. "Exactly. She's cooperating. You're the ones risking escalation if you move incorrectly." The murmurs in the crowd grew louder. "She's right," someone said. "You can't just grab her." Others nodded, some speaking quietly into phones as they narrated what they saw. The social pressure built like invisible weight pressing on Trenholm and his team. Every hesitation, every small slip, would be caught on video. The agents shifted uneasily. They had arrived expecting compliance, maybe a short confrontation, maybe no witnesses at all. They hadn't expected this, people watching, phones recording, eyes following every movement. The power dynamic had changed. Malik's eyes didn't leave Trenholm. "This is your chance to do it right," he said. "Follow procedure. Respect her rights. Otherwise, every word, every movement is on record." Jazara's composure was a quiet anchor. She didn't speak unnecessarily, didn't gesture wildly. She simply stood firm, letting the law and presence of witnesses speak. The crowd felt that. The crowd understood that she wasn't resisting. She wasn't escalating. She was simply asserting her rights, and by doing so, she had everyone's attention. Some bystanders started whispering to each other, sharing the narrative. "She has her ID. They can't just take her. They're acting wrong. Look at that guy in the jacket. He knows what he's doing." Malik glanced briefly at Jazara, a small nod of reassurance. "Stay calm. Keep it steady. We'll get this resolved without unnecessary escalation." The agents hesitated again, scanning the witnesses, scanning the crowd, scanning Malik. Each pause, each slight shift in stance showed the social pressure mounting. The ordinary morning had completely dissolved. The confrontation was now public, documented, undeniable. Every small sound, the whir of a phone camera, the soft murmur of whispers, the shuffle of feet, added weight to the situation. The agents could no longer act solely on authority. Every action was being measured against scrutiny, legality, and public awareness. Jazara felt it, the unusual calm that comes when you know you're supported, not just by one person but by the collective presence of others witnessing. She held her ID a little higher, showing it clearly, letting the cameras capture everything. Malik's stance beside her reinforced the message. Authority alone doesn't guarantee compliance with rights. Trenholm's jaw tightened. The agents whispered among themselves, reviewing options. The crowd pressed closer, subtly but unmistakably. Phones were raised, silently capturing, witnesses narrating, documenting. The ordinary morning had transformed into a real-time accountability test, and every move mattered. Malik's voice cut through again, calm, measured. "You have a choice. Follow procedure. Verify her information properly, or you risk escalating unnecessarily. This is your call." Trenholm's eyes flicked to the phones, to the murmuring crowd, to Malik, and back to Jazara. The hesitation was growing, small cracks forming in the rigid posture they had brought to the scene. The social pressure, the observation, the knowledge being applied strategically, everything combined to tilt the balance. Jazara's breathing remained steady, her eyes fixed, hands unclenched but ready. The street that had once been ordinary now held the weight of justice, presence, and accountability. Every witness mattered. Every phone recording mattered. Every subtle reaction of the agents mattered. The murmurs turned into voices speaking just a little louder. They can't do this without a warrant. She's cooperating. Look at that guy, he knows what he's doing. Malik kept his calm, letting the agents feel the pressure without forcing it. He didn't yell. He didn't demand. He simply made sure the law and the witnesses were clear. The agents were aware of it now. The crowd wasn't passive. They weren't just observers. They were participants in the sense that their attention, their recording, their presence demanded accountability. Every hesitation, every misstep by Trenholm and his team could be captured, shared, and scrutinized. Jazara felt the street's energy shift. It was tense, yes, but no longer threatening. The social pressure had created a buffer, a protective layer. She wasn't alone. She was not just a single person against authority. She was the focus of scrutiny, and that scrutiny was powerful. The ordinary morning had disappeared completely. In its place was a real, urgent test. Would the agents follow procedure, respect her rights, and avoid escalation, or would they push forward in defiance of legality and social observation? Every breath, every heartbeat, every small movement counted. The crowd, the cameras, Malik's presence, all combined to create a public accountability no one could ignore. The tension was palpable, but the ground had shifted in Jazara's favor. Trenholm glanced again at the witnesses, his stance tighter, more deliberate. His team whispered among themselves, considering next steps carefully. The street had become a stage, and the ordinary had been replaced by extraordinary attention to rights, law, and public scrutiny. Jazara stayed still, holding her ID, calm but resolute. Malik remained beside her, a steady presence, speaking when needed, silent when that was more effective. The crowd pressed slightly, leaning in but not interfering, their presence alone enough to influence the unfolding confrontation. Every second mattered. Every whisper mattered. Every phone recording mattered. The ordinary morning had transformed into a public negotiation of rights, authority, and observation. And Jazara, calm, composed, documented, was at the center of it. The agents were still tense, their formation tight, eyes darting between Jazara, Malik, and the growing crowd. Malik stepped a little closer, not aggressively, but enough to create a clear line between her and the officers. His movements were calm, measured, but carried authority that didn't need volume to be felt. "Let's clarify the facts here," he said evenly. "You're holding a person without a valid warrant. That's a violation of her rights. Let's avoid escalating this any further." Trenholm's jaw tightened. "Routine stop. She matches the description. Compliance is required." Malik's gaze didn't waver. Matching a description isn't enough. You need probable cause. You need legal documentation. And the public is watching. Every step you take is being recorded. Proceed incorrectly, and the consequences are yours. Jazara felt her shoulders relax slightly. She didn't need to speak. Malik's words created a buffer, a protective assertion of law. She held her ID forward, letting the officers see she was ready, willing to cooperate properly, but not intimidated. The crowd had grown quietly, forming a loose semicircle around the agents and Jazara. Phones were raised higher now, recording, streaming, documenting the unfolding confrontation. Whispers circulated, small pieces of commentary, confirming what Jazara already felt. The presence of witnesses mattered. Social pressure, subtle but powerful, began to influence the agents. Malik stepped even closer to Trenholm, voice calm but firm. "Step back and show the paperwork. Validate her identity properly. You are overstepping your authority, and you know it. Every person here is seeing what happens next. Let's do this legally." Trenholm's eyes flicked to the crowd, tension visible in the way his hands flexed and unclenched. The other agents shifted slightly, hesitant now, aware that authority alone was not enough when people were watching, when their actions could be captured, replayed, and scrutinized. Jazara's composure remained steady. Her heart raced beneath the surface, but her breathing was controlled, deliberate. She didn't need to act. Malik's intervention had created space for her to assert herself safely, for the law to take center stage. One of the bystanders, a young man holding his phone out, whispered loudly enough for others to hear. She's showing ID. They can't just take her. The murmurs spread, small but cumulative. Each voice added weight to the pressure on Trenholm. Malik continued, unwavering. You want compliance? Show it through proper channels. Run her identification officially. Show your warrant. Otherwise, step back. You are accountable for this encounter. Trenholm hesitated. The agent's formation remained, but the edge of certainty had slipped. This was no longer a simple stop. Public presence, documentation, and calm legal pressure had tilted the balance. Jazara raised her voice slightly, clear and controlled. I've done nothing wrong. I am cooperating fully. Show me the warrant. Follow the law. That's all I ask. The murmurs in the crowd grew louder. Phones clicked, whispers spread, the tension palpable. Everyone was aware that something significant was happening. Not a protest, not a fight, but a direct confrontation of authority in public, documented, undeniable. Malik's eyes scanned the crowd, then back to Trenholm. This is your choice. Handle it correctly. Respect the law. Step back if you don't have documentation. Every action from here is being observed. There's no excuse for overreach. Trenholm's jaw tightened further. He glanced at the phones, the witnesses, then at Malik, and finally at Jazara. His team shifted in formation, cautious now, aware that the situation had escalated beyond routine authority. The agents' tension was tangible. Their confidence, previously firm, was now tested by observation, legality, and social pressure. The crowd remained silent mostly, but their presence was enough. Every small movement mattered. Every word counted. Jazara held her ID steady, calm, eyes focused. Malik stayed beside her, silent unless a legal point needed reinforcing. The ordinary morning was gone. The confrontation had transformed into a test of accountability, procedure, and presence. Trenholm muttered something to one of his agents, then turned back to Malik. We need to verify. Then do it properly, Malik said. Follow procedure. Validate her identification. Confirm her citizenship. Don't overstep, and there won't be a problem. You control how this unfolds. Do it legally. The crowd's murmurs became quieter, but their observation remained intense. Phones were recording, some narrating. Others whispered to companions, noting every detail. The street was alive with attention, subtle but powerful. Jazara felt the tension ease slightly. Malik's presence and legal framing had shifted the power dynamic. She was no longer just a target of authority. She was a participant in a real-time assertion of rights, supported and documented by witnesses. The agents paused, small fissures forming in their rigid posture. Trenholm's eyes scanned Malik, the crowd, Jazara. The first real cracks of uncertainty appeared. Social pressure, legal framing, and public scrutiny combined to hold them at bay. Malik's voice, calm but unwavering, cut through the murmurs. This is a moment to act correctly. No mistakes, no overreach. Verify her identity, show the paperwork, and resolve this without escalation. Jazara remained calm, composed. The ordinary morning she had walked into was gone. In its place was a public confrontation, documented, observed, and legally framed, held firmly in her favor by Malik's intervention. The agents shuffled slightly, hesitant. The first step toward resolution, verification, and accountability was now possible. Every movement mattered. Every word counted. The street had become a stage for procedure, rights, and vigilance. The ordinary morning had ended. What remained was presence, observation, law, and courage, quiet but undeniable. Jazara stood tall. Malik stood beside her. The crowd watched. And the first step toward justice, however small, was about to unfold. The agents shifted again, Trenholm's eyes scanning Malik like he was a variable in a puzzle he hadn't prepared for. We need cooperation. Step aside, ma'am, and this will be over quickly, he said, voice clipped, trying to regain control. Malik didn't move. He stayed steady, calm, his presence deliberate. Cooperation requires legality, he said. You cannot detain her without a valid warrant. Matching a description isn't enough. Probable cause is required. Show your paperwork. Trenholm's jaw tightened. He motioned slightly toward an agent to speak, but Malik cut him off before the words left the man's mouth. Wait, let's do this correctly. She's cooperating. You run her information properly. That's the proper procedure. Anything else risks escalation. The agents glanced at one another, tension visible in every shift of weight, every subtle hand movement. The crowd around them had grown, a loose semicircle of witnesses, phones recording, whispering, murmuring. Every hesitation, every small gesture, was magnified in the public gaze. Jazara held her ID steady, calm but alert. Malik's voice reinforced her position without aggression, using law and procedure as a shield. "Run her identification," Malik said firmly. "Confirm her citizenship. Do it correctly. Otherwise, you are overstepping, and the public is watching." Trenholm's eyes flicked to the phones, to the whispers, to Malik, and back to Jazara. His confidence was cracking under scrutiny. He motioned again toward an agent, and this time the agent stepped forward, a clipboard in hand, flipping through pages while giving Jazara a hesitant glance. Malik leaned slightly forward, voice low but sharp enough to carry. "Check everything. Spelling of the name, date of birth, citizenship. Do it officially. Make sure your actions are documented correctly. She's compliant. You are responsible for what happens next." The agent holding the clipboard flipped the pages carefully, reading out pieces of information, comparing names, dates, addresses. Trenholm's fingers flexed and unclenched at his sides. Every eye in the crowd was on them. Phones tilted slightly, capturing video, streaming to social media, recording every word. Jazara stood quietly, letting Malik handle the legal framing. She didn't speak unnecessarily, didn't gesture wildly. She simply maintained her composure, knowing that calm persistence would weigh more than confrontation. Malik spoke again, pacing slightly, but never threatening, always calm. "You're required to follow procedure. Verification is not optional. Confirm her identity before any further action. Step back if you're unsure." One of the agents finally muttered something under his breath about a mismatch, a small hesitation. Trenholm's eyes flicked down at the papers, then back up, tension evident in his shoulders. Malik noticed immediately. "See," he said quietly, almost to himself, but loud enough for Trenholm to hear. "Procedure matters. Verification matters. Every step has consequences." The murmurs in the crowd grew louder. "She's showing ID. They're overstepping," someone said. Phones continued recording, whispers spreading, the social pressure building. The agents felt it now, not just Malik, not just procedure, but public observation magnifying every choice. Trenholm stepped closer to the clipboard, eyes scanning, fingers tapping lightly, indecision flickering across his expression. Malik's presence didn't dominate physically, but it dominated the situation. Calm, knowledgeable, firm. The agents were aware they were being watched, that their actions would be dissected, recorded, and judged. Jazara's composure stayed intact. She held her ID clear, visible, ready for verification. Malik's presence and steady reminders of procedure created a buffer, making every aggressive move from the agents less likely. The street was tense, the crowd pressing subtly closer, phones raised, witnesses narrating quietly to each other. Malik spoke again, evenly, firmly. "This is how authority should work. Lawful verification first. No shortcuts. No assumptions. Compliance must be based on evidence, not suspicion." The agent with the clipboard hesitated again. Trenholm muttered something, then raised his hand slightly in acknowledgement. "We will verify." Malik didn't relax. "Do it completely. Every detail matters. Dates, spelling, address. Confirm her identity fully before any action. Public accountability is here, and you are responsible for what happens next." The tension in the agent's shoulders shifted further. Their rigid stance had softened under scrutiny. Social pressure, legal framing, and Malik's calm intervention combined to hold them at bay. They could see the weight of observation, the presence of witnesses, and the potential consequences of overreach. Jazara remained composed, breathing steady, hands unclenched, confident that procedure and public attention would protect her. Malik stayed beside her, watching, speaking when necessary, ensuring every legal standard was reinforced. The agent flipped another page, checking details. Trenholm's jaw flexed, subtle signs of frustration, but also recognition that the ordinary tactics of intimidation were ineffective here. Malik's quiet insistence on law, procedure, and accountability had shifted the dynamic entirely. The crowd remained mostly silent, but phones captured everything, whispers spread through the observers, and the pressure of social presence weighed on Trenholm and his team. Every choice they made now was visible, recorded, and accountable. Malik leaned slightly toward Trenholm. "This is how authority earns respect. Not by force or assumption, but by procedure and transparency. Verify her properly, and this ends without incident. Fail, and you own the consequences." The agent with the clipboard paused, looking up, scanning the crowd, the phones, Malik, and then back to the papers. Trenholm's posture stiffened slightly, tension rising. Verification was imminent, procedural rigor enforced, public observation undeniable. Jazara felt a subtle shift. The power dynamic had changed. Her ordinary morning had vanished, replaced by a confrontation where law, calm presence, and public attention dictated the outcome. Malik's intervention had created a structured, legal shield that could withstand authority acting on assumption alone. Every second mattered. Every detail was scrutinized. Every murmur, every phone recording, every deliberate action by Malik and the crowd applied pressure. Trenholm and his team had to act carefully, follow procedure, and verify her identity properly, or risk legal and social consequences. The street held its collective breath. Phones continued to record. People watched quietly. Malik maintained a calm but unyielding presence, and Jazara held steady. Authority, law, and accountability now collided publicly, with the ordinary morning erased entirely. The first step toward resolution, verification, and accountability had begun. Malik's intervention, the crowd's attention, and Jazara's calm assertion of rights had turned a routine stop into a legal chess match unfolding in real time. The next moves would decide whether procedure would prevail or authority would overreach. The air shifted the moment Malik leaned forward, calm but deliberate, pointing to the paperwork Trenholm's team had been reviewing. "Look closely," he said, voice steady but commanding. "This detainer is invalid. There's no warrant. The dates don't match. The name is misspelled. You cannot lawfully detain her under these conditions." Trenholm's eyes flicked from Malik to the agent holding the clipboard. His jaw tightened, but the hesitation was now more pronounced, heavier. The team had relied on assumption and authority, but procedure had exposed the flaw. Social pressure, public observation, and Malik's legal framing had cornered them without confrontation. Jazara exhaled slowly, though her posture stayed firm. She didn't speak, didn't move. She let Malik hold the space for her rights, letting the calm authority of law and procedure dominate the street. Phones were recording, the murmurs of the crowd growing louder. Everyone could see it now. The agent's claim was faulty, the detainer invalid, and their justification slipping apart under scrutiny. Trenholm muttered, almost under his breath, This can't be right." "It is right," Malik said, his voice even but sharp. "You overstepped. You did not verify properly. This document doesn't authorize her detention. Step back. Resolve this legally." The agents shifted uneasily, subtle but unmistakable signs of doubt. Fingers flexed around belts, shoulders tensed, eyes flicked to the witnesses. They were aware that every movement, every misstep, would be recorded, replayed, and scrutinized. The public accountability had now become undeniable. Jazara felt a wave of relief, but she stayed composed. Malik had created a buffer, a legal shield, a public stage where procedure ruled. She held her ID clearly, letting it speak for itself. The lead agent's voice faltered. We need to confirm." "Confirm what?" Malik interrupted, calm but firm. "You already see the problem. The paperwork is invalid. You cannot proceed without following the law. Every second you try otherwise is a violation of rights, publicly observed and documented." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Phones tilted higher, capturing Malik's words, Trenholm's hesitation, the agent's faltering confidence. Witnesses whispered among themselves, some commenting directly into their phones. "No warrant. She's right. They can't do this." Trenholm's shoulders tensed. He motioned toward the clipboard again, but the agents hesitated, glancing at the crowd, scanning phones, weighing the risk of overreach. Malik's calm insistence had shifted the power dynamic entirely. Authority alone was no longer sufficient. Procedure, public observation, and legal knowledge now dictated the outcome. Malik leaned slightly toward Trenholm. "You have a choice. Step back and follow the law, or continue overstepping. The consequences are on record for everyone here. Every action is accountable." The tension in the street was palpable. The ordinary morning had been replaced by a moment where procedure, rights, and public observation collided. The crowd's presence, silent but powerful, held Trenholm and his team in check. Phones recorded every word. Eyes watched every move. Finally, Trenholm exhaled sharply, shoulders dropping slightly. He looked at his agents, and they shifted in unison, the first real sign of retreat. "Step back," he muttered, voice quieter now, uncertain. "This will verify everything. She's cleared." Malik nodded subtly, his posture still firm, still asserting calm authority. "Do it properly," he said. "Then this ends. No further action until everything is verified." The agent stepped back, small but deliberate movements, creating space around Jazara. Her ID still in hand, she maintained composure, letting the crowd witness the de-escalation. The murmurs grew louder, whispers of approval and relief spreading through the bystanders. Phones tilted to capture every retreating step of the officers. Malik's eyes swept the street, then back to Jazara. "You're clear," he said softly. "They're following procedure now. Stay calm, stay firm." Jazara exhaled, a mix of tension leaving and adrenaline still coursing. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't shouted. She had held her position, relied on procedure, and had witnesses at her side. Malik's intervention had exposed the flaw, shifted the power, and ensured her rights were respected. The agents finally regrouped, muttering about miscommunication, about verifying details, their authority restored in posture but not in decisiveness. The ordinary morning had returned in part, but Jazara, Malik, and the witnesses knew something significant had happened. A procedural flaw had been exposed, public scrutiny had influenced authority, and accountability had been asserted without violence. Phones continued recording as the agents retreated to their SUVs. The murmurs of the crowd were now filled with recognition, even quiet applause. Malik kept his stance calm, a subtle nod to Jazara, then to the bystanders. "Always remember," he said quietly, "know your rights. Observe. Document. Calm and knowledge change outcomes." Jazara finally lowered her ID, shoulders relaxing just enough to breathe freely. The ordinary morning had been shattered, but it had been replaced with something meaningful. Assertion of rights, public accountability, and a clear demonstration that procedure mattered more than assumption. The agents drove away, engines humming, tires crunching on the asphalt. The crowd slowly dispersed, phones still recording, whispers still exchanging, the tension slowly fading but leaving a mark. Jazara and Malik remained a moment longer, acknowledging the subtle victory. The turning point had passed. The procedural flaw had been revealed, the authority challenged publicly, and the ordinary morning had been irrevocably transformed. In its place, a powerful lesson had emerged. Calm, knowledge, and the presence of witnesses could shift power, enforce rights, and demand accountability. Jazara exhaled again, steady, composed, and ready for the rest of her day. The street, now quiet, held the echoes of a confrontation that had started ordinary and ended extraordinary. The engines of the ICE vehicles revved softly as the agents finally began to step back. Trenholm's hand signaled the team, a silent order to disengage, and one by one, they moved away from Jazara. Each step was measured, cautious, as if aware of the witnesses, the phones, the weight of the public eye on their actions. The authority they had carried moments before now felt hollow, diminished by exposure and scrutiny. Jazara lowered her ID slowly, keeping her composure but letting the tension in her shoulders ease. She hadn't shouted. She hadn't lunged. She had stood her ground, relied on law and procedure, and allowed Malik's calm presence to guide the interaction to resolution. The murmurs of the crowd grew louder, a mix of relief and quiet celebration. "They can't just do that," someone said, voice tinged with amazement. She stayed calm. "That's impressive." Phones continued recording, capturing the agent's retreat, every subtle movement, every glance of hesitation. Malik stepped slightly closer to Jazara, still alert but relaxed now that the immediate threat had passed. "You're clear," he said quietly. "They're backing down. Stay steady until they're gone completely." Trenholm muttered something about miscommunication, glancing at his agents as they pulled back toward the SUVs. There were no threats now, no commands. Just careful retreat, the kind that suggested acknowledgement of error without outright admission. Jazara watched them go, her heart slowing as the street shifted back toward ordinary life. The bystanders began to step back, murmuring among themselves, whispering observations, sharing the moment with each other. Phones still recorded, live streams continuing, the digital proof of what had just unfolded preserved for all to see. Malik gave her a small nod. "You did everything right. Calm, prepared, and knowing your rights. That's how you control the situation without escalating." Jazara exhaled fully, a quiet smile touching her lips. Relief and adrenaline mingled, leaving a strange sense of empowerment. The ordinary morning she had started with errands had turned into a confrontation with authority, a public assertion of her rights, and a lesson in accountability witnessed by many. People in the crowd started dispersing slowly, some pausing to share what they had seen, others shaking their heads in disbelief. Phones tilted back to their pockets, but the memory and evidence remained. The street had returned to its rhythm, but the tension lingered, a reminder of what had almost happened and what had been prevented. Malik stayed a moment longer, surveying the scene. "They'll talk about this back at their office," he said quietly. "They'll remember the scrutiny, the legal correctness, and the crowd. That matters." Jazara nodded, still holding her composure. She felt a mix of gratitude and awareness. Gratitude for Malik's intervention, for the presence of witnesses, for the calm assertion of rights. Awareness that every moment had counted, that procedure and public observation had shifted power without violence. The last of the agents climbed into their vehicles and drove off, tires crunching over asphalt. The street felt lighter, freer, as the crowd finally dispersed, whispers of commentary trailing behind them. Phones were still recording, capturing the retreat, the resolution, and the subtle victory of procedure over assumption. Jazara lowered her head slightly, exhaling slowly. The ordinary morning had ended, replaced by a moment that would echo online, through conversations, and in shared recordings. The confrontation had been resolved, not by aggression, but by knowledge, calm, and public accountability. Malik's voice, calm and reflective, broke the quiet. "Remember this. Presence matters. Knowing your rights matters. Documentation matters." Today wasn't just about a confrontation. It was about showing that accountability can be public and effective. Jazara met his eyes, a small nod of agreement. The tension of the morning was gone, but the impact remained. This wasn't just a moment of relief. It was a moment of empowerment, a demonstration of procedure, law, and public witness holding authority accountable. The ordinary morning was gone. What remained was clarity, calm, and a public lesson in rights and accountability. Jazara adjusted her bag, took a slow, deliberate breath, and started walking again, her steps measured but confident. Malik followed, his presence still protective but relaxed. The street was quieting, witnesses dispersing, but the scene had left an indelible mark. The agents had retreated, procedure had prevailed, and public scrutiny had ensured justice without escalation. Phones continued recording in pockets, whispers remained in conversations, and the story was already spreading beyond the street, carrying with it a clear message. Calm assertion of rights, procedural knowledge, and the presence of witnesses can change the course of events, even against trained authority. Jazara exhaled once more, steadying herself. She had faced the confrontation, maintained composure, and emerged unscathed. Malik's guidance had been crucial, but the victory belonged to her calm, her rights, and the collective observation of the crowd. The ordinary morning was gone, but it had been replaced with an extraordinary lesson in accountability, presence, and empowerment. The street returned to its rhythm, but the moment remained, a public, witnessed, and recorded assertion of justice. Jazara walked forward, calm, composed, and quietly aware that today had changed something, not just for her, but for everyone who had seen it unfold. The video spread faster than anyone could have anticipated. Phones that had recorded the confrontation uploaded clips to social media within minutes. Friends shared with friends, neighbors sent to co-workers, local news picked it up, and soon the story was everywhere. Jazara's calm assertion of her rights, Malik's strategic intervention, and the ICE agents' faltering authority were replayed repeatedly. Each clip, each frame, told the same story. Knowledge, presence, and procedure could prevent injustice. Comments poured in under the videos. Some expressed shock and outrage. "How could they even try that?" one post read. Others praised Jazara and Malik. "She stayed composed, and he knew exactly what to do," another said. Local civil rights organizations circulated the footage, emphasizing the importance of public documentation and calm advocacy. People debated, discussed, and dissected every movement, every word, every subtle sign of tension in the agent's stance. Jazara watched some of the clips herself, still stunned at how quickly ordinary moments had turned extraordinary. She replayed Malik's calm instructions, his strategic use of procedure, and the subtle but undeniable shift in power. The ordinary errands she had begun in the morning had become a moment of public accountability, visible to thousands, even millions. Malik reviewed the recordings quietly beside her. "This is why public presence matters," he said. "Not shouting, not aggression. Knowledge and calm observation change outcomes. They shift power, even when authority seems absolute." The comments online were unfiltered, raw, but consistent. People were moved by her composure. They were inspired by Malik's intervention. And they were outraged at the ICE agents' overreach. Public debate sparked not just about this specific incident, but about the broader implications: civil rights, authority, accountability, and the power of witnesses. In the following hours, the story gained momentum. Local news stations reached out for interviews, but Jazara and Malik were cautious. They wanted to focus on procedure, on rights, on public witnessing, not sensationalism or fear. Clips from multiple angles circulated online, each one reinforcing the same reality. Calm, lawful intervention had prevented escalation. Jazara reflected on the day, the tension, the fear, and the relief. She hadn't panicked. She had held her ground, but it was Malik's knowledge, his calm authority, and the strategic use of witnesses that had shifted the situation. It wasn't luck. It was preparation, composure, and public accountability. Malik watched the spreading footage, silent but attentive. Every day, people face authority they can't control, he said. Most situations don't end this cleanly. But today shows what happens when knowledge meets presence, when the crowd watches and records, and when rights are asserted calmly. That's power. The story ignited discussion beyond their city. Civil rights advocates cited it as a textbook example of proper procedure and public oversight. Social media users shared advice on knowing rights, asserting them calmly, and documenting encounters. Jazara herself began receiving messages from people who felt inspired or reassured that asserting rights wasn't futile. As the initial shock subsided, Jazara and Malik reflected on the street where it had all begun. The ordinary morning was gone. In its place was proof that courage, knowledge, and calm intervention could prevent harm. Every witness mattered. Every phone recording mattered. Every moment of composure mattered. Malik placed a hand lightly on her shoulder. "Remember, this isn't just about today," he said. "It's about knowing the law, staying calm, and using public presence to protect yourself and others. What happened here can be replicated, and it should be. That's how change starts." Jazara nodded. She felt the weight of the day, but also its significance. The confrontation, once threatening, had become a lesson in empowerment. The agents had retreated. Her rights had been protected. The public had witnessed accountability in action. And the story, captured, documented, and shared, would continue to influence, to educate, and to inspire others. The ordinary morning had transformed into a day of lessons, visible to everyone. Jazara resumed her routine, but differently, aware that knowledge, calm, and presence had changed not just her outcome, but the narrative for anyone watching. The viral video wasn't just footage of a confrontation. It was a demonstration of power through procedure, a reminder of rights in practice, and proof that calm, informed intervention mattered more than fear or intimidation. Malik walked beside her, quiet but watchful. "People will talk about this for weeks, months, maybe years," he said. "Not because of sensationalism, but because it shows what's possible when preparation meets action. Never underestimate the power of calm, clear knowledge in public." Jazara exhaled, steadying herself. The ordinary morning was gone, replaced by a vivid, undeniable assertion of rights, accountability, and public empowerment. Today, she had learned what many only hoped to realize, that witnessing, documenting, and calmly asserting the law could turn fear into agency, vulnerability into strength, and ordinary moments into extraordinary lessons. The videos continued to circulate, the discussions continued online, and the lesson continued to resonate. And Jazara, Malik, and the crowd of witnesses who had been there that morning knew something fundamental. Authority could be challenged, rights could be enforced, and ordinary people, armed with knowledge and calm presence, could change the outcome of real-life confrontations. The ordinary morning had ended. The extraordinary impact had begun.
If you like this video, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next story. Share this video with someone who would appreciate it, and let's keep building this community together. And before you go, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what stood out to you the most. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and I'll see you in next.